Hmm. Yeah, finally I was able to move some of my internal storage to an SD card. Yeah, all right. Um, yeah, so anyway, I was thinking about some factors involving cardiology with something a little bit previous, that presented issue of a congestive, admitting diagnosis repeatedly. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, so I wouldn't like really agreeing with much about that, really, about it being a repeated issue other than, even the medications that were prescribed. I mean, I wasn't really going for anything other than, hey, yeah, that's it, yeah. Yeah, so like, I wasn't agreeing with like quite a bit about the medication. And, in any case, so it seemed to be like really enough if access it only presented maybe the issue of whether or not to. I mean, is it like me on YouTube making a statement, hey, come on in, have a meal? Is that what it is? YouTube.com, huh? I actually said that on YouTube.com, didn't I? Or would that be like, something that had been like, you know, it's amazing, huh? Whew. Yeah, I said that. Hey, come on in, have a meal. Is that what it is? Or does that like happen like all the time, like around the entire world, right? So anyway, it's almost like Thanksgiving every day with that, huh? So anyway, there was like an issue going on, that seemed to be continually, the air quality and certain factors that have really affected quite a bit um, in its way, and being able to do anything about it. It's almost like it's kind of like there's like certain things that I'm realizing at certain levels of where the word is at in degree, or like even hearing it really anywhere, even if the perception of the word where it's at. I mean, unlike any other like chemistry, it's like I mean, words has got like 30, 40 letters to like explaining one deal about chemistry, right? But anyway, I mean, it's like almost in the dictionary having a 8 to maybe 10 letter word would have like many meanings, but it's almost like the word in what chemistry is involved. It's almost like sometimes it's like the word. It's like, I mean, it in definition and like very minimal to its own description, and not like a multitude of like options, of when and where and how it's used. But anyway, so in any case, so it's kind of like think about some of the medication that was like being given. I mean, seriously. I mean, anyway, it's kind of like originated predominantly. It's like riding my bicycle quite a bit, and I had an issue with like what seemed to be like retaining fluid in my body that really normally, and really there's like been many factors like involved that seem to have affected my body. Unlike like any other, more so probably more so than many years, probably longer before I even truthfully even realized it. But the thing with this is that in a way, like blood circulation was like really the last issue being that. And, there had been some, questions in my mind, about certain factors that had happened. And, I wouldn't necessarily call it trauma, but there had been a time involved in certain factors that a high pitched tone like got in my ear, and it's kind of like after a certain, factor of like um, in any case, yeah, so like I've had a high pitched tone in my ear for like, I mean, for like really a very long time, but and it's kind of like it's kind of like wow, and I don't know if it's like just a synchronized issue based upon perception of what synchronization would more than likely possibly mean. But anyway, years went on, and certain factors about the way my body was functioning, including something about my hearing. I presented the question, to like a radiologist about the hey, like what's going on with my ears, and had them, and really, I'm having a tough time believing truthfully anything that I've heard quite a bit in the hospital involving X-rays. There have been presented issues, that reflected, me being really in my younger years, so like athletic. I mean, weight of any kind, like really just wasn't happening and wasn't going to really. But the thing with this is that really, as far as like certain factors that were involving admitting diagnosis, um, and it's amazing. It seemed like when I like started really getting serious. Really, I was being really truthfully serious about my drums. Presenting the economic factor of like what availability meant as availability. So anyway, whether it's an economic factor, what a preference really really is. Yeah. So whether it's an economic factor, or just something about it. In any case, yeah. So as far as like YouTube goes, okay, it's like I was getting serious about certain factors about it, and it's kind of I was talking to my dad a little bit about that, and it seemed to be like it was almost like going to be like an issue whether or not if um really a questionable thought of like what a perception might mean, and really, I mean, ultimately, quite a bit about a method of banking, and what my thought of even talking to my dad, and like his truck or his SUV, resulted in like is that all that going to stop like when I get on YouTube? And it's kind of like really kind of really not funny in a way because I was thinking about being on YouTube, predominantly what I normally do like practice anyway. Um, with well now like YouTube about the setup and audio production that way, and that's considerable amount with a fairly really nice light show really, and other factors involving the full thing about a recording studio. But anyway, I started to put a little bit of time in that really just for a standard reference, and I know that I've heard it before. That's sometimes not necessarily the thought of anything other than whether or not if an original band or something would consider it, a compliment or not, or like whether permission is really the issue or not, or but in any case, I mean, it's like available for like what intellectual property really is based upon what having fair use is. But I can understand, the thought of like a win profit or infringement would maybe present maybe what only royalties would mean, I guess, beyond um, actual performance or what might be. I wouldn't necessarily call it um, deviant from its original source of like recording or um, your record company. Or, I don't even know if I would even choose the word company really, but thing with this is that really, I mean, if it's like a point of origin and the original, everything about it, its production and distribution and recording and all that, anything other than what would meet during a time other than maybe something that might deviate and expand beyond its original point of origin, recording and production and distribution and promotions, beyond maybe what would be, considered, the real deal about, normally a 10 to 15, really truthfully longer, really 20, but I mean, if it's really a consistency with performance and really active in it that way. But it seemed to be like really if it's going to be used on YouTube by many musicians might have like what might require a schedule. It might normally be just thrown in a compact disc and choosing a preference that way and just learning by ear, while others have their discipline like really getting into the original music and everything about it. I mean, from the very beginning, with like the formal training, like really and everything about it, and while others like maintain a schedule and have other obligations likewise and make what they can of it during all that, right? So that normally is automatically the thought of what entertainment is, and my perception was really involved quite a bit that way. But anyway, like throughout the years, I chosen that as what I listened to really, and as far as standards. But anyway, I was thinking about that because I was talking to my dad. It's kind of like it seemed like really it's going to like is something going to change like when I get on YouTube, or is it going to be like really hey, is there going to be a question like with me having my own identity? I mean, for real, it's kind of like really. And anyway, so it's kind of like it's kind of like seemed to be whether if it's going to be a question. But anyway, the thing with this is that really things were like going really smooth, but I started feeling the need to like hurry up and get like quite a bit on YouTube. I mean, I was starting to feel that perception, um, hurry up and get it on there kind of thing. And like many factors are like happening, I mean, like right now anyway. But in any case, so like that in any case, so like really starting to feel that thing about just get as much on there as possible, as soon as possible. But anyway, so like I was doing it like I was riding my bicycle all the time, and I mean, it got to the point to where like I was riding my bicycle on a sidewalk, and it's kind of like all the fumes and like all this stuff about the condition, and even the like telephone poles, utility poles for like electric, utility poles. I mean, we're like so coated with that what would normally look like tar, a treated type of like a preserving issue for like utility poles. I mean, it was like so potent. It was like unreal. and like everything around was like really getting that way. Really not cool at all. So anyway, it's kind of like it's kind of like I'd make calls. Ultimately it's like resulted in calls. Like 911, and the deal about congestive. Well, anyway, that went like on, like for like 16 months. Okay, like the 15th month I think is the only month that I didn't have to call 911, which normally resulted in an automatic 5-day and night stay with a drip. In my mind, it ultimately got to the issue of like uh, other factors that in my mind was like a circulation issue. And I asked that previously, before all that, like what I'm referring to now, about like restriction in blood flow. I mean, really, it was like really involving neurology, okay? And I was like asking for X-rays. Hey, is there like really something going on with like the restriction in blood flow? Maybe in a way of like an external factor, that maybe I might not have been aware of really. So I was having the X-rays and everything, and I just wasn't really hearing obviously what I thought that may have been possibly really the issue, because there's like certain factors involving neurology as far as like endocrinology in that way, and I mean it's like really affecting me, like conditions of the air and other factors, but available that they meant. But in any case, yeah. So the thing with this is that whether or not the naivety of like what conditions would present. I mean, it seemed to be like really even the conditions of the air itself, and either other factors were like affecting me in anatomy, and the part that would involve urology as well as endocrinology. Normally, some of the medication that was like automatically like seemed to be like not a problem. Like, hey, it's like really working, involving the pituitary gland, okay, and it seemed to be like whether or not this like really. I mean, if it's like um, ultimately getting to like other factors that had resulted in like restriction in blood flow, ultimately getting to like the immune system, um, and the overabundant amount of white blood cells being produced. And I knew that it was affecting me as far as my breathing went, and the circulation, because it's like now it's kind of like at certain times, I mean, I can see my blood bands, my vessels, I mean, and it's like it's like wow, I've asked repeatedly, when I was going, when I was like really getting into the urology thing about it, I knew I was really already wasn't hearing what I should have heard, okay? And even much more so of like when I was thinking about that, something of like what is it, it's referred to, how true if it's really called amyloidosis, but anyway, it's like an overabundant when the immune system kicks in, and really, it's ridiculously not humorous thinking, what I'm hearing and the way I'm hearing medical terminology. I mean, if I'm really hearing the degreed terminology as amyloidosis, or if it's, I mean, really, I'm not really trying to find humor in it for real, or a bunch of white stuff about it. Okay, so I mean, at that point, I mean, is it really the degree terminology at the degree level of reputable standards of consensual participation? Seem to be the thing about the deal in anatomy. I mean, is that really the real word for like a what would normally be maybe overexposure causing the immune system as an external factor? Normally, sometimes oncology presenting the issue of like or an overexposure to like what might even be presented as hmm yeah, factors of like even a rebar and a concrete and a foundation, and something really not funny or humorous to me right now, or hey, there's a new development. In any case, yeah. So like yeah. So in any case, so like I was like thinking about that because other factors involving like consumption, and it's like really the big deal really in my mind that used to normally with like dry goods, not always limited to, but I mean it was like always additives, preservatives, and byproducts. And it seemed to be like some kind of transition when I really noticed it, and I'm not sure when I noticed it is really the actually thing about when it actually was. But it seemed to be like something about the, somewhere in between the Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and the inaugural ball deal about Chevy Chase, and on into the George Bush administration. And like I don't know if it was just the thing about that and that alone about additives, preservatives, and byproducts. I was like realizing that I wasn't seeing that anymore. I mean, it seemed like very noticeable when I like really realized, and I started looking like it would normally be, not limited to truthfully to dry goods, okay, and then I wasn't seeing that at all. I mean, it's like additives, preservatives, and byproducts, huh? And so like after the years, it's kind of like I was thinking about that because of certain factors, and it seemed to me like when I was like getting on YouTube, okay, and like in just practicing the deal. about certain factors, and yeah. So anyway, I was riding my bike, okay, and I was in here practicing my drums, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like a, all of a sudden it came to where I was getting like a neurosensory perception. I mean, I never really heard about it. I mean, I've heard, and it's hard to believe, just listening to some compacts of this, I listen to it, it's kind of like, um, getting like a hint or a clue about certain factors about that. I mean, and really, I'm not real sure what's truthfully involved with WIA International or any thought of maybe what all the compliance. I'm not really sure if that's actually involving what might be considered a Federal Reserve or what really truthfully involved with like Sarbanes and Oxley, financial instruments and SOX compliance. I'm really not sure if that's the automatic perception of baseball and the White Sox and the Red Sox and all that blood stuff, or what the white blood cells and blood stuff would be. But the thing with this is that really, in any case, there's like more factors to codes that way than just blood, or my thought about it seemed to be like really the thing that was like really happening was whether conditions would be something that just information that was like presented during like a very extreme duration, somewhere between 95 and how many months, I'm for sure like a real serious 6 months of really serious crap. But in any case, yeah. So like years later, I mean, I was realizing something about the restriction in blood flow, and I was like practicing my drums in there, and I'm feeling like something different, and I got to the point that I was feeling like a neurosensory side of what would be presenting maybe like muscular cramps, or on a neurosensory side, more ligament and tendon and joint, but really a different perception of what cramping in that way would present, and it seemed to be like ultimately it got to like something about the um, years before going through the circuit, and it's like extremely traumatic, really. And in case so like something about that, like some retroactive future, and I mean even the furniture for real, and even the scent right here, right? In any case, it's kind of like it's like I'm waking up in this my own home, and I didn't even realize it. Okay, going through the circuit. Okay. In any case, like in the middle of the night, and like some of the lights that actually shows. I mean, it's amazingly true. What availability has really meant, and it's almost like I don't even like calling demographics for the mere sake of what. I mean, if a Democratic is the only thing about what a Republican is not, or a liberal in a way of being, the thought of like everyone uses it, or like international law having fair use of what access easements only mean, or what the deal is about a method of banking. The thing with this is that really ultimately it got to like electrophysiology years later. I mean, when some of this was like going on, like really, I mean, how could it not been like the 94, 95, and 96, and however long beyond that? I'm sure I can. Anyway, and really, it came to the point of like realizing something about that, and it's like I was in my own home. It's kind of like I'm opening up my eyes, and it's like taking me like 45 minutes to even grasp that I was looking at a drum set in my own home, and the furniture had changed, and like I'm looking at a light right by the mirror, and it's like right there, and it's like complete dark, okay, and it's like a moving headlight that's scanning extremely slow, but it's like sound activated, okay. And the same furniture like that was made available that I actually got, I mean, like 10, 15 years later. And I mean, I'm really flipping completely over it. But anyway, I was like looking at the drum set. I didn't even realize it was in my own home. I'm looking at a drum set, and it's just like taking me like 45 minutes to grasp what I'm even looking at, and and then I'm like looking at it, it's like a drum set. It's like, wow, I must be in heaven, for real. But anyway, I mean, for real. In any case, so like I'm looking at it, and I didn't even realize that I was even in my own home, and in any case, so like I'm like a real serious crap is like really going on, right? So anyway, so like years later, I mean, it's like traumatic, okay? It's like in and out, back and going through the circuit, and like God, like it seemed like so very many places involving things of like entertainment. In any case, like music videos, kind of like wow. But anyway, it's like sometimes I was realizing about that. But anyway, like I was in here, I was practicing my drums, and I mean, I purchased the same freaking light and put it in the same exact spot that it was like when it's like, kind of even in the room where I put an air conditioner. I mean, for real, and the way it was designed, because of the thing about the window, I actually did it the same way it was when I was brought back here. During all that, it's kind of like, for real, like a retroactive future, and I mean, it's so not funny. But anyway, yeah, so, I'm looking at it, and I'm realizing, I mean, I'm sitting in the middle of the night after, years later, I mean, like maybe, I don't know, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, maybe a little longer. And I'm sitting in there, it's after my mother and father passed away. And the same position, the same furniture, the same position of like the moving headlight right by the mirror. I mean, it's exactly, and I mean, I'm almost assuming the availability of what is available as far as like the anticipation of like knowing something about me would be more than likely exactly that, and realizing it's almost like seriously beyond not funny. But in any case, I'm sitting there in the middle of the night looking at my drum set, and the light, I mean, that was the only thing that was on. I was just sitting there watching it scan real slow. And the light had stopped right on me in the same exact. I mean, I put the furniture in the same exact freaking location. And that light is scanning. I mean, it stopped right on me exactly. And it's like my memory's like going, I mean, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I actually chose the same lighting, the same drums, and the same furniture. And I'm sitting there and I'm totally flipping over the entire situation. And that light is like in the exact same position. I'm like looking at almost in complete disbelief. I mean, for real. In any case, so like I mean, like really, I mean, I'm a drummer, okay, but like when the time came and I saw that Pearl Vision drum set and that Strata Red, as far as availability went, I mean for real, I wasn't gonna let it get away. And so like I got it, okay, and there's like a lot going on about it. But in any case, so like I was like watching it, okay. And well, anyway, like years later, it's like a lot was like I was really realizing that when I was like getting serious about getting equipment and like starting to make some music videos for a portfolio. Okay, but anyway, I'm practicing my drums and it's like I'm starting to feel this cramping come over on the neurosensory side, and something about fumes and like a combination of like many factors, like a restriction in blood flow. A congestive thing about because of the restriction of blood flow, plus the fumes and the congestive side of just the fumes itself, and I mean, for real, okay, and I'm like really kind of like starting to, feel like the need to call for like 911. Well, this like went on like every month for like what 14 months and then 15 month. I mean, repeatedly they're saying, "Hey, congestive heart failure." It's kind of like, hey, there's like no, I don't go for that. After the third or fourth time, so you gotta be kidding me. I'm not really buying one thing about that. I've been, the medication that's being prescribed. So like, I was like really having a tough time like believing a thing about, what was being prescribed. Okay, and the thing with this, it seemed to be like really, really the deal about whether or not if a combination of amyloidosis causing an external factor like causing the bone marrow. According to what I've only been told and available information, and what I've heard on the news, okay, and really that's sometimes in my mind almost a question of like just a simple degree level of just like having a K television, or really the accusation of really possibly knowing the difference and really not knowing the difference about degree terminology. I mean, that one word, when I realized something about it, even when my father and my mother and father both had cancer, I don't think I heard anything like really not at all identified as the word amyloidosis, okay? Which is normally the bone marrow or an overexposure, which normally involves oncology, okay? That actually causes the bone marrow to trigger, the immune system and produce white blood cells, and the attempt to, combat any, external factor to, I mean, it's like the white blood cells, obviously, cause the body as a defense mechanism to help speed up any type of a, you know, um, healing process, more so in that way of the immune system to help prevent any further and, promote, faster healing. But anyway, that actually causes in turn an overwhelming amount of white blood cells in the bloodstream itself, and a combination of other factors, including, you know, in any case, so like, it got to the point to where, admitting diagnosis got to the point to where I felt that the congestive side, when wasn't being treated as a point of origin as the cause as compared to the symptoms. And I just had to start like getting into my own thing about certain other factors about doing my own thing about like looking into the thing about the similarities of congestion, which ultimately got to even mesothelioma or the AFib and the atrial fibrillation and the arrhythmia. And the procedure that was like ultimately suggested as an oblation, yet it seems to be like getting to the AOAO thing. And I'm trying to actually see think if there's any real deal about um, the Federal Reserve or maybe something in a different way. And I'm not real sure if Sarbanes and Oxley, financial instruments of SOX compliance. I'm not sure to the any extent at all what SOX compliance is, other than what I have only had as information for myself. How true it is, based upon information. Already knowing that networking has been like a really a not funny situation about what available information only means, and probably only like maybe knowing whether I even know really how what I sound like is really ultimately really sometimes what it gets to, knowing or not knowing what is like really not humorous and something about that. But yeah, anyway, so I like think about that because ultimately it got to an oblation. It seemed to be like described as like a bag of like fluid around the heart. And previously, it wasn't an issue of whether blood flow. I knew there was an issue with blood flow causing a complication with breathing. Like was in addition some like neurosensory. It seemed to be like the conditions of inside of my own home. What is like the thought of that's why I don't even talk or use that phrase, electronic consumer, or the consumer important price index, or what all that is to like yeah, the thing about it. So anyway, so like I'll think about that because I wasn't going for the admitting diagnosis, and like years had went by. Ultimately originated from like going to the urologist about the thing about circulation, the guy thing about it. Okay. Well, anyway, when I realized I wasn't hearing what a urologist, I mean, should have been the number one thing. I mean, the first visit. And when I realized that I wasn't hearing anything about something about the immune system, uh, or the thought of what amyloidosis might only mean is a constant exposure, years of it, and not even realizing. I mean, for real, affecting something neurological that way, preventing a restriction in blood flow. Likewise, in addition, okay, I got to the point really that when I realized I didn't hear that in neurology, I mean, like everything about even going to the hospital seemed like the entire situation, every hospital, every network, everything. I mean, it really is it just me? Well, anyway, it's like a. So anyway, like the deal about restricting the blood flow had got to the point to when I had X-rays, I was going to have an X-ray specifically. Is there anything other like than anatomy in my body preventing what? And really, obviously I'm not hearing, but it's like I see the difference in my blood vessels. I mean, sometimes immediately, and I'm looking at it going, you got to be kidding me. And there've been times, it's like I'm seeing like what normally would be a normal setting, like right up under the skin, the blood vessels, and then it's like you see blood vessels, and then it's like there's a restriction, and seeing my own veins in my arm, it's like you got to be kidding me. So anyway, like I got to the point where I was going to have an X-rays just to hear what they had to say, and me believing anything about it really at this point, considering everything that's happened, really truthfully in about the last 2.5 years. But it seemed like really when I got on YouTube, like really using my drones, my lightings, and ultimately all the stuff like going on, resulting in me in this tent, it even seemed to be like a deal um, with the white lining. It's amazingly true. It seemed to be almost like something about ridiculously not funny about the desert in 71 in Pearland, or a tent involving something about Sarah Abraham, and I mean for real about the Sahara, or Sarah Sahara, or flipping and switching the deal about the H and the A, and the pronunciation of Sarah and Sahara, and the higher angel thing, and Abraham, and the two syllable like 44 or 22 and 22. I mean, it seems to be like, you see, I study alphanumeric linguistics. Okay. In any case, so I mean, it ultimately got to the thing about Sarah being like, defined as like one of the most beautiful women in the entire Bible, or something in my mind really that seemed to be like becoming, not that it's ridiculous, about the American religion, the American amplified thing, the American Amplified Living Bible as compared to maybe the Mormon, the Book of Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it's like, really, you got to be kidding me. Is something like that really happening to me? I mean, is that the only explanation of like maybe not attaching the English language to the English Parliament and England itself as a method of banking, or would that be, hey, having a form of godness but denying the electronic power thereof, maybe, or the international citizenship, or the English Parliament? I mean, would that be denying English, or what is it? Is it a bilingual situation, or denying the English Parliament? Identifying like how long have you known you speak English, right? I mean, is it ultimately getting to a method of banking, or international prejudice? Like you denying your own language? What's really the issue? Knowing or not knowing, it's like, hey, how long have you known you speak English, man? Yeah, yeah, all that great stuff about it, right? Ultimately, getting to the isometrics beyond method of banking, right? It's like pi r squared and all that, yeah, the pi r squared factors of isometrics, beyond the method of banking, and some real actual participation beyond the method of banking, right? Of local area networks, right? Some volume about it, right? Some American amplified volume to like Fred Flintstone's wheels, right? Some like cylindrical volume, huh? The pi r squared thing about Fred Flintstone's like not so prehistoric that it rules out JavaScript, right? So anyway, yeah. So like in any case, so like I was like thinking about that, happen to the summit meeting, right? But anyway, so like I was going to having X-rays, and I'm like, what is that high pitched tone in my ear, And it's kind of like I said like, is there like a thing about my ears that I need to know about? So I was having X-rays, and sometimes I really wonder, but anyway, in any case, so like it ultimately gets to the hearing test. It ultimately seems to be like something about the something way back in young years. It ultimately seemed to be like something of NASA. Yeah, something about that. Yeah. In any case, so like truthfully, so in any case, so like I was questioning that deal about the restriction in blood flow and the congestive thing, or the cause of restriction in blood flow in turn causing a buildup and not allowing dissipation, absorption, and penetration and transferring nutrients throughout the entire body to cause the body, the skin tone, even for like blood circulation, to look the way it should, and the body properly function properly. Okay. And it got to the point that it being a restriction in the blood flow itself, causing a restriction in the buildup, retaining more fluid, and not allowing oxygen transfer in the lungs. And the thing about mesothelioma, and the description of the ablation, of a procedure that's been identified of both arrhythmia and fibrillation, AFib, yeah, atrial fibrillation, yeah. In any case, so like the thing about the pronunciation of ablation is like it's almost to me like now like a alphanumeric linguistic deal. Like one pronunciation with the A or the O is like oblation, and the ablation one is like a procedure involving where there's going to be arrhythmia or um, atrial fibrillation, and yet another pronunciation of ablation is like an act of God, and you got to be kidding me. It's kind of like Pearland being 71 thing about it. That's kind of like so we're having a equator issue, huh? Yeah, it seemed to be like something about that, yeah, involving the equator, yeah. In any case, yeah. So like I was noticing that that's another reason why I was going to urology. I mean, way, way, way before really starting to make my music videos on and putting them on YouTube. Really, I say what I mean is my standards of many bands I listen to and practice is predominantly the thing about the drummer, me being a drummer, or even singing, but. In any case, yeah. So when I say that, I really mean, normally a compact disc, but now it's going to be like I think from now on it'll be strictly if I even put any of my original music on it, and by myself, I might not, and I've been like trying to get to a point to where, getting the musicians to a level that's going to be like not a contesting issue of like just walking in and out just to present some duration of like not accomplishing like one thing other than a bunch of wasted time. So like I'm really trying to prevent all that crap from happening before it even gets started that way. And I've seen that. I'm not in the mood for that. I mean, finding the perfect personality and all that stuff, and finding what band members would probably find important, significant, involving what they want to be and represent or already are, and hey, great, So anyway, so like I was trying to make that and get to that point, and now all this has like really been going on. Okay, So anyway, so like it got to the point to where like the restriction in blood flow, it got to the point about feeling the need for X-rays. Likewise, in addition, and now it's kind of like I'm looking at my arms. I mean, it's not a problem even seeing my blood vessels. And it's like in almost like an instant. It's like where'd they go? I mean, for real, So I mean, I've been really knowing that for a long time, and really I haven't been really hearing what I think I should have already been hearing, like 15, 20 years ago about, hey, I want an X-ray just specifically for that. And obviously, it's been, maybe the suggestion and persuasion of, thinking might have maybe promoted, maybe, lead the way with the innovation theory, or maybe a claim on intellectual based upon, whether or not if it's like, hey, that sounds good, maybe or is it like managing factors of psychology, with the persuasive technique of thinking that, hey, that's like, hey, that's, or is it like, hey, well, why didn't I think of that? Had it been like proper English numerical composition or, third person in a way, like only maybe whether if actually being participating in the conversation might only reflect as maybe a disregard of maybe kind of indirectly, maybe, yeah, it's like royalties, right? On intellectual. Why a U.S. patent is not a copyright, huh? Yeah, yeah, like football players' property, like the Dallas Cowboys and all that stuff, right? Yeah, sure. Anyway, so like Stars Born, right? Yeah, all right. So anyway, like I got to that point because I'm sitting here and like seeing my blood vessels is kind of like hey man, like where they at now? And it got to the point that believing anything about going in and out of the hospital had really seriously got to the point that really going is ridiculous, almost as much as an insult as even having to go there. But even getting in there and like it's almost an insult. Even being in there when being in there is like really not supposed to be. But even getting there and both in there and out of there, and even getting out of there becoming an insult is really ridiculous. Not humorously funny to me. Okay, I mean it's like anyone really supposed to like that? Huh. Yeah, yeah, great. I mean it's like a yeah, really not funny, right? So anyway, like in any case, so like I was thinking about that because I was thinking about I was trying to stay on track here about the thought about congestion and the heartbeat of America for Purple Mountain Majesties above the fruited plains. For Purple Mountain Majesties uh, above the fruited plains. See. Hmm. Yeah. Anyway, so like the America thing. In any case, yeah, so great. Purple Mountain Majesties, like a Purple Heart being 140 in Paradise, Texas. Woo. Or that 88. Is that the New Deal Act? Is that what that is? I mean, is the New Deal Act really getting to like the sixth presidential term, which will be the year 2024? Like from Theodore Roosevelt to like Franklin Roosevelt, it's the six presidential terms in office. And the thing about ABC 13 Houston, the ABC 7 Los Angeles is likewise the sixth thing, or the Six Flags thing, and what was in Astro World, seeming to be the thing about certain factors, ultimately getting to whether or not if the thing about national anthems should really been a factor of like what a circuit really obviously has been, and I don't know if it's really just limited to. I mean, if it's just designated as what's involved with a specific circuit, but now it almost seems like almost the deal about from Franklin to Theodore to Franklin Roosevelt of the New Deal Act, or like what ultimately seems to be the deal about the 200-year celebration, or transportation, or the pro-life thing about pro Jesus Christ or the Lord Jesus Christ, or a plenipotentiary, which is supposedly the similarities, if not the same, of the exclusionary rule provision, a plenipotentiary of like executive powers, sovereign immunities, and governmental amnesties. Um, and in that way, a plenipotentiary is suggested as what information is provided. Likewise, with in my mind the Wyatt Earp thing, the Earp, the exclusionary rule provision. Those are the two that seem to be the deal about the uh, executive powers, sovereign immunities, and governmental amnesties. The exclusionary rule provision and the Earp and the plenipotentiary that way. Yeah, I've nursed of like 200, right? My thing was going, yeah, all right, yeah. Or that calculus stuff about, Pentagon and the drummer, or bicentennial drummer and all that operator stuff. And, yeah, once again, yeah, all right, yeah. So, anyway, like, all that was going on. And hmm, and realizing that a 16-month period of going in and out of the hospital, having to call 911, had seemed to be like a seriously controlled situation. Yeah, that experience. Yeah, I mean, really, I'm not that idiot, but yeah, yeah, I'm assuming that really that would almost be an automatic perception of maybe not feeling like that's like amusingly like not cool. Feeling like being on a schedule would actually almost look that way. Yeah, experience, huh? Yeah, yeah, for real. So, in any case, yeah. So, that's what I think about that. But in any case, yeah. So, like, I wasn't really quite liking something about that. At the same time, controls, yeah. Experience, oh yeah, experience, okay, yeah. So anyway, like I was like listening to all that stuff about the similarities of like a congestion involving mesothelioma, which is like fluid between the tissues of the bronchi as compared to what would be congestion that had been identified involving maybe a pericardium that is suggesting a procedure uh, other than maybe an ablation, normally identifying maybe atrial fibrillation and arrhythmia as compared to a pericardium as identified, and I never heard anything about that unless it maybe was maybe something like really, the reason why I was asking for X-rays is there like an external factor inside my body I need to know about, and obviously I'm not hearing obviously what now. I mean it's ridiculously, it's kind of like, hey, we should really get all that stuff out of my body so like I can have like proper blood circulation, okay, and in any case, so like yeah, and all that medication, it seemed to be like, hey, okay. Well, okay. Well, I'm about, all that health stuff, okay? And, I don't know what the deal is, but it seemed to be like really ultimately getting to whether if international banking systems were importing and exporting. And, the information about Sarbanes and Oxley, raising a bar, the SAR, the bar, um, or, the Baby Ruth, or what the deal is with like SOX compliance, or really ultimately it seemed to be like the mayor's office of like I mean really a 1964 thing of like the Houston Mayor Louis Wells thing of proclamations and declarations, and and really I had that really my entire life, and the significance, I mean, it just didn't compute to like a storefront or business front or municipal annuities or what it means to maybe something about the a lifespan or duration of like the whole entire point of I don't like calling it demographic study or anything in the way of like that would present maybe a negative or maybe the thought of like being used and not even realize it. But there come to a point that really when I was like really realizing just me shopping, sometimes making a decision on what I was going to buy and almost realizing the availability. Sometimes even like walking in a mall and the way I was hearing it, like in so many different ways. I mean, I used to drive around. I mean, I would be, hearing it in a way. I mean, if it's like the radar low thing, been hearing some things, throughout the years, on and off, or even shopping. I mean, sometimes it's almost like realizing that maybe something about even shopping, I'd almost become, is that a compliment or is that an insult? Or, I mean, it's like really getting almost ridiculous, being almost anticipated on maybe what is available and what might be chosen, you know, for, the deal about the, yeah, I mean, really, in any case, I mean, he really got almost extremely, like, really not cool or funny at all. I mean, for real. Um, it's not so, like almost making decisions sometimes almost like you gotta be kidding me. Not cool, and it's ultimately getting, whether or not if it comes to a time whether if it's really an issue of like why a U.S. patent is not a copyright. I mean, even on, what it is to a Star is Born or what that really is involved or whether it's supposed to be a known or not known factor beyond, how could it be possible to even know that or, even be allowed to know it or, or is it just really gotten to the point of, anyone else other than they themselves, experiencing, the thing about it. In any case, so like, I mean, if it's ultimately getting to, really the deal about, anatomy, I mean, in health, truthfully, no matter what, I've always considered myself all about the health anyway. I mean, no matter, I mean, really, I don't want to say really no matter what, not that I'm looking for a contesting factor, or an overruling, whatever, the deal might be overwhelming in that way, but, really, I'm not trying to have that issue in any kind of way, really, truthfully not. In any case, so like, it got to the point that thinking that, factors involving, my blood circulation. And when I didn't hear that, and when I realized that I did not hear that in neurology, or that any medication involving like the pituitary gland or endocrinology that would affect chemicals in the brain that in turn or like involving hormones, glands, and deal about the guy thing. Okay. Well, in any case, so like and that was like hey, cool, it works perfectly well, and then became an issue of like what access meant. Um, yeah. So I mean, really, I mean, it's like hey, huh. So I don't know really what to think about it. I'm going to say what I'm going to have to say about it anyway. In any case, I have a life to live is really what the deal is, and I mean, why wouldn't it be that? I mean, why wouldn't it be that? And it ultimately got to the point of whether if K television is only representing whether or not if a medical power of attorney is using a television, um, a fixture in real estate as medical power of attorney using a fixture in real estate for any determination, or really what a fixture is in a commercial venue of living quarters. I mean, is it that the neighborhood has just got a K television, not W television, or would that be maybe the thought of Sarbanes-Oxley SOX compliance? I mean, where does it begin? Is it the PG-13, the parental guidance, the presidential governor's method of banking? I mean, is it really genetics in the way of like a service, or I mean, really the real deal about it? Or the real deal of like some like eternal life, and I don't want to actually just say eternal damnation, but the thing about eternal life, whether it's one way or the other. But in any case, yeah. So I mean, it's ultimately coming to the realization of like that fact, In any case, so like yeah, for real. So in any case, so like yeah. So I was thinking about that because ultimately it's getting to like whether or not if what I thought would like automatically be like not a question, I mean, what is it about YouTube? I mean, is it just like 109 or yeah, the U in YouTube? Yeah, so like in any case, so like it got to the point of like really I really I was kind of like questioning really if I should have thought of something that like automatically something I've been looking at for quite some time, and about a 1965 thing. And my thought about Mayor Louis Welcher, something about proclamations and declarations. I mean, if it seemed to be the memory of like a pastel blue boat, like a baby blue, and like pastels were like real like it in the early '60s. Um, how more before the '60s, but anyway, like hospitals predominantly using that pastel green for like bricks and certain buildings and pastels and colors were like I mean so much it in the '60s. It's unreal. Um, True about architecture. And one of the first things I remember, like as an infant, I mean, I think it was like the three lights. There were like three lights, like would be, what would be maybe like a dentist office. But I mean, I think that it is the very first thing. I mean, I don't even know if it's like the first day I took a breath. I mean, for real, in the hospital, maybe something maybe beyond maybe incubated, if that's really the issue. But it's like a mask, like an oxygen mask or whatever the case is. And I mean, I think that's the very first thought I remember was like a three lights above and like that mask and oxygen, whether it's oxygen or whatever the case is, of the deal about the is it a test of the emergency broadcast system, huh? The OR thing, huh? In any case, so like that's like and years later, I mean, it's like a pastel thing about the architecture, and years later, it's ultimately getting to the word relation between architecture and platform, and embedding and encryption, and the deal about the history of a television screen and what pastel is to Technicolor, or what now seems to be, I because of really seriously an experience after baptism, I mean seriously for real, um, it led me to like look for answers in a whole different way. And really, after I mean, I'm not sure if he's even a neighbor, but nevertheless, in any case, a guy knocks on my front door and like hands me an envelope with like a $1 bill, and I just like started like looking, and obviously, and really, I had the U.S. dollar in my pocket, my wallet, like so very much. I mean, and really never even truthfully looked at it, and really acknowledged the words on or the designs of the buildings. Really, it's just like hey, it's in my wallet, but like after like during 1992, and like I was just really getting into alphanumerics, looking for like answers. Really, and it's like really getting really kind of like, I'm sure anyone gets involved with alphanumerics, you know, when it gets to the U50 151 and the mental telepathy minus God and all that stuff about the alphanumerics and or subliminal message, or you know the deal about the 26, or a telepathic power and all that stuff about 177 minus 26 being 151, or Holy Spirit, Secret Service, and Jesus Christ, and selective service, and all that stuff. And you know, anyway, and I'm sure that most people, when they find that, it's kind of like, hey, that's not a joke, you know. And realizing that, you know, well, anyway, that's a little bit more motivation to continue. But anyway, nevertheless, a guy handed me, you know, like knocked on the door and had a $1 bill, and it's kind of like, I looked at it, and really for the first time, I really like looking at, okay, what is that, you know? And then it's like the Bono, the band U2, and you know, years later, it seemed to be like the difference between the spelling of the word seclorum, uh, and with like U2, two U's, and then with one O and one U in the word seclorum, you know, to the bottom right side, you know, below the pyramid, Novus Ordo Seclorum. And automatically I'm thinking of, like, you know, Bono and the deal about the band U2, right? And what was going on at the time was like the United States map, and a whole bunch of rectangles identified as like restricted areas, like horizontal rectangles. And that was like really before I even got to the Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln Continental deal about the hood ornament and the rectangle and 9 degree, and ultimately getting to the Lincoln night vision and all that stuff. Ultimately, you know, even the global positioning systems and geographics with latitude and longitude, and a 9 degree of the equator, and you know, a latitude becoming a longitude being the equator, right? So anyway, that seemed to be the deal about, like, even like with like a, you know, Christopher Columbus's the Nina, the Santa Maria, the Nina Pina, yeah, and like a, you know, at the Lehigh Coco 7 species century Plymouth Rock, right? And it seemed to be something about like that in the 9 degree that way. Ultimately getting to something about the, you know, South America with a 9 degree. Likewise, like in Australia, well, what would might seem to be like going down from like Plymouth Rock, you know, towards what would represent maybe Latin terminology, um, and something about that, yeah, and you know, just the pronunciation of Columbus and something about Columbia that way, as compared to like what I see now involving like Australia. And I'm thinking it's my automatic perception of like what Sydney would be with a 90 degree of an equator going upward, and as compared to like Christopher Columbus at Plymouth Rock. I think about like Lehigh Coco's acceptance speech at the front lines of the beach route, right? At Plymouth Rock, yeah. So anyway, and you know, I'm kind of like waiting a little bit about the Australia deal, about a 9 degree of the equator, but it seems to me there's going to be like an automatic 2 about that. I'm really not going to worry about it, but I'm thinking about that's more than likely what it is for me right now, anyway. So anyway, yeah, so it seems to be like a deal about that. But anyway, what the rectangle is to like a pi r squared, and you know, a square of like latitude and longitude, that way of coordinates, that way, and that's what I'm thinking about the 2 9 degree of the equator thing, that way of that, yeah. So anyway, like I've gotten way off track, and it's almost going on an hour already. But yeah, so like thinking about that, because the you know, I was like noticing that with my blood vessels. I mean, my blood vessels are like really standing, you know, up under my skin. It's like, I mean, you know, I'd been to like, you know, hematology, and you know, a lot was going on, and it's like, you know, I really couldn't even get anyone to even convince me. I was even looking at what's supposedly told to be my own X-rays, and now it's kind of like, you know, you got to be seriously not funny about it. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, it really I kind of like deviated like far beyond really than staying concentrated, but anyway, I just want to have that to say about it right now. Anyway,